For decades, the world has viewed the Palestinian struggle, often framing it through a lens of unwavering support. This narrative often paints a picture of a stateless people, steadfastly supported by a unified Arab world, standing shoulder to shoulder in solidarity. The image is powerful, suggesting a seamless alignment of purpose and resources. But the reality, as is so often the case with deeply entrenched geopolitical issues, is far more complex, a tangled web of motivations and constraints. Arab states' support, while undeniably present in various forms, is ultimately shaped by considerations of self-preservation, national interest and regional stability, not just pure, unadulterated solidarity. Emotional ties run deep among Arab citizens, a shared cultural heritage and a sense of collective identity, forging strong bonds of empathy and concern. However, governments, operating within the complex framework of international relations, act with cold pragmatism, carefully weighing national security concerns, economic stability imperatives, and the ever-shifting landscape of global alliances. Their decisions are often calculated, strategic, and driven by a desire to maintain their own power and influence. Official declarations of support and the provision of aid, while significant, often mask a deeper reluctance to become directly and militarily involved in the conflict, a hesitation rooted in a careful assessment of potential risks and repercussions. This reluctance is born from the hard lessons learned from past turmoil and regional conflicts, experiences that have instilled a deep sense of caution and a desire to avoid further destabilization. Arab leaders have also learned, often through bitter experience, that the Palestinian issue, with its potent emotional resonance, can easily spark internal unrest and potentially threaten the stability of their own regimes. Consequently, their policies, while often expressing support for the Palestinian cause, ultimately aim to carefully manage, rather than decisively resolve, the underlying conflict. Therefore, to truly understand this complex and often contradictory dynamic, we must look beyond simplistic assumptions of betrayal or abandonment. Instead, we need to see a tangled web of competing interests, deeply ingrained historical mistrust, and fundamental survival instincts that shape the actions of all players involved. Once, Pan-Arabism was a powerful force, a vision that sought to unite the Arab world under a shared identity and purpose. It was a time when leaders dreamed of a single, strong Arab nation, capable of standing tall on the global stage. At the heart of this movement was Palestine, a potent symbol of dignity, resistance, and shared struggle against external forces. The Palestinian cause resonated deeply across the Arab world, acting as a unifying force that transcended national borders and political differences. It was a cause that defined Arab identity for generations. But the landscape shifted dramatically after the tumultuous events of the 2011 Arab uprisings. These uprisings, initially fueled by a desire for democracy and reform, inadvertently fractured the fragile unity that had been painstakingly built over decades. The Arab world found itself at a crossroads, grappling with internal conflicts and external pressures. In the wake of the uprisings, many regimes turned their focus inward, prioritizing their own national survival and stability above all else. The spirit of Pan-Arabism, which had once emphasized collective action and mutual support, began to wane as individual nations grappled with their own unique challenges. Consequently, the Palestinian issue, while still holding emotional significance for many, gradually lost its central and unifying place in Arab politics. Other concerns, such as economic development, security threats, and internal political reforms, began to take precedence on the agendas of Arab leaders. Ambitious domestic projects and sweeping economic reforms became the new priorities, particularly for resource-rich states like those in the Gulf. These nations embarked on transformative journeys, investing heavily in infrastructure, technology and diversification, seeking to secure their long-term prosperity and global competitiveness. The collective "we" that had once defined Pan-Arabism began to fade into the background, gradually replaced by a stronger emphasis on national interests, internal stability and sovereign decision-making. Each nation charted its own course, driven by its own unique circumstances and priorities. While leaders continue to pay lip service to the ideals of Arab unity and the Palestinian cause in their public pronouncements, their actions are increasingly guided by a pragmatic nation-first doctrine. Political expediency often trumps ideological commitments in the complex world of international relations. The strong ideological glue that once bound the region together has significantly weakened, leaving the Palestinians with fewer reliable and committed allies in their struggle for self-determination and statehood. The sense of shared destiny that once fueled Arab solidarity has been eroded by internal divisions and competing interests. The once vibrant dream of a unified Arab front, capable of acting as a single powerful force on the world stage, has largely given way to a fragmented patchwork of individual states, each pursuing its own distinct path and agenda. The region is now characterized by a complex web of alliances, rivalries, and competing interests. This profound fragmentation has fundamentally altered the political calculus in the region, leading to the marginalization of the Palestinian cause and the sidelining of Palestinian interests in the broader geopolitical landscape. The path forward for the Palestinians remains uncertain in this new and complex reality. In the intricate political landscape of the Middle East, where history and power dynamics are deeply intertwined, public protests are often viewed through a lens of suspicion and control. They are seen as potential threats to stability, not just as simple expressions of dissent or disagreement with government policies. The Palestinian cause, in particular, holds immense symbolic weight and can mobilize massive crowds across the region, igniting passions and uniting diverse populations. But for autocratic rulers, who prioritize maintaining their authority above all else, these demonstrations are dangerous double-edged swords fraught with risk. Protests initially focused on the Palestinian cause can quickly morph into broader demands for domestic change, for political reforms, and for greater freedoms. The energy of the crowd can shift, as was vividly seen during the Arab Spring uprisings of 2011, when regional solidarity transformed into widespread calls for democratization. Leaders live in constant fear that once street activism gains momentum, it becomes exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, to control its trajectory and contain its spread. So they often resort to heavy-handed tactics, clamping down swiftly and decisively on pro-Palestinian demonstrations to prevent them from escalating. Governments issue carefully worded, strong statements expressing support for the Palestinian people and encourage controlled aid through official channels. But simultaneously, they deploy security forces in large numbers to prevent any possibility of mass mobilization or spontaneous gatherings. In this context, the Palestinian cause often becomes a tool to carefully manage public opinion and maintain the status quo rather than a genuine call to action or a catalyst for meaningful change. Regimes are constantly trying to strike a delicate balance between appearing supportive of the Palestinian cause on the international stage and ruthlessly suppressing any grassroots movement or expression of solidarity that could potentially threaten their own grip on power and destabilize their rule. The result is a carefully managed, often cynical response, where genuine empathy is often overshadowed by political calculation. The ever-present fear of unrest and challenges to authority shapes every official move and policy decision. Despite talk of Arab Brotherhood, history is filled with tension and conflict between Arab states and Palestinian movements. Events like Black September in Jordan and the PLO's role in Lebanon's civil war left deep scars and lasting mistrust. Arab leaders learned that empowered Palestinian factions could threaten their own sovereignty and stability. Political missteps, like the PLO's support for Saddam Hussein in 1990, led to ruptured alliances and mass expulsions of Palestinians from Gulf states. These betrayals and conflicts have never fully healed, fueling ongoing suspicion. The legacy of mistrust shapes today's cautious policies. The relationship is defined as much by fear and resentment as by solidarity. For neighbors like Jordan and Egypt, the refugee issue is a matter of national survival, not just compassion. Jordan, already home to millions of Palestinians, fears another influx would destabilize its delicate demographic balance and strain resources. Egypt worries that refugees from Gaza could bring militants and threaten security in the volatile Sinai region. Both countries see accepting refugees as undermining the Palestinian cause, potentially enabling Israeli annexation. Their closed borders are framed as defending Palestinian rights, but also protect their own stability. The humanitarian crisis is real, but so are their fears. The visible support for Palestine in Arab countries has been muted by the systematic suppression of civil society. Groups like the Muslim Brotherhood once mobilized mass support, but after the 2011 uprisings, regimes cracked down hard. Leaders dismantled these organizations, labeling them threats and cutting off their ability to organize. This left a vacuum. Anger remains, but the structures to channel it into action are gone. Protests are now sporadic and easily contained, replaced by fleeting social media outrage. By neutralizing these groups, regimes have silenced one of the strongest sources of Palestinian solidarity. The public square is quieter, and the cause is easier to manage. Western influence, especially from the US, looms large over Arab policy on Palestine. Many Arab states rely on Western military aid, security guarantees and economic ties, making them cautious about confronting Israel. Any bold move risks losing vital support and facing diplomatic isolation. As a result, their actions are limited to humanitarian aid and verbal condemnations, carefully avoiding real confrontation. The push for normalization with Israel, as seen in the Abraham Accords, reflects a shift towards strategic alliances over traditional commitments. For some, the benefits of partnership with Israel and the West outweighs support for Palestine. The Palestinian issue is sidelined in favor of national interests and Western approval. Beneath official rhetoric, social and cultural frictions complicate Arab-Palestinian relations. Stereotypes and resentment have grown from historical events, economic disparities, and perceived cultural differences. Some Arabs blame Palestinians for their own dispossession, fueling detachment. In host countries, economic competition and perceptions of unfair aid create local resentment. Political actions by Palestinian groups have sometimes been seen as ungrateful or disruptive, deepening mistrust. These undercurrents erode solidarity at the grassroots level. Social distance adds another layer to the region's hesitant stance. To call Arab caution on Palestine, simple betrayal misses the complex reality. Decades of conflict, shifting priorities, and regime survival have shaped a pragmatic, often reluctant approach. Historical traumas, economic fears, and dependence on the West all play a role. Leaders must balance ideals with the demands of governance and stability. The emotional connection endures, but policy is dictated by hard realities. Only by understanding these pressures can we grasp the true nature of the Arab world's stance on Palestine.